All right, welcome back to another edition of the Pear Genius Podcast. We are just getting better. We got Sandy in her genius zone. This is the Pear Genius Podcast. My wife is here, Kati, the other half of the genius equation. Welcome, welcome. Sandy, welcome back.
Thank you for having me again.
This is a special edition. Why don't you tell everybody, including me, exactly what this special edition's about, and we're just going to get right to it.
We're here because Neptune is moving into Aries March 30th. And this is something that hasn't happened for 165 years. Neptune moves very slowly. The last time it happened was the American Civil War.
Oh,
So
wow.
when Neptune moves from Pisces to Aries, the energy shifts because not only does it go from a beginning of a cycle to an end, because Pisces represents an end, Aries is a beginning, but the energy becomes a lot more self-centric and a lot more will be mass awakenings, but fighting for what we stand for and not so much what we're told. The last, I think I wrote it down, Neptune moved into Aries. Can't remember. It stays for a long time. So the last 20 years while it was in Pisces, we had a lot of spiritual awakenings, a lot of empathy, a lot of illusions being cast, but also a lot of illusions being exposed. That was the energy. And as it shifts into Aries, it becomes more of a self thing. What am I going to do now with this? The rose-colored glasses come off and it's, hey, now how do I react with it? Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So it was 2011 to 2000 and now that it was in Pisces.
Wow, that's amazing. As you were talking about it, my whole body started prickling all over. I'm like, ooh, maybe I'm going to enjoy this.
Oh, yeah. Yes, you will.
And the whole time I'm thinking, I know exactly what Sandy needs for her birthday, and I'm going to let her husband know. I have the perfect idea. But I'm not going to spoil it here. I'm not going to spoil it on. No, I'll spoil it.
I don't like surprises.
You need an Antikythera mechanism. Everybody Google this thing. It's fascinating.
Antikythera.
Yeah, it's a place in Greece, and that's where I believe it was invented. But it's to chart the stars, and I think that you would appreciate that more than any single person in this world, maybe.
Perhaps.
I'm fascinated that it's a 165 year cycle.
Yes.
That's a long time. So
that's how long it was since it came back in Aries. Neptune doesn't move consistently, so it's not like each sign gets the same amount.
Wow. So
but yeah, but since it was in Aries.
That's like almost 6 generations.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, I had a great uncle that fought in the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Was he a Yankee?
He was the North, and he lied about his age. He was, I think, 14, and you had to be 16 or 18 to go fight or something like that. So he lied on his thing and got in. And
oh, man. That's a fascinating deep dive.
But if you think, I like that example of the Civil War, because if you think about Neptune moving into Aries and you're going to have the advocates, like the whole thing was about slavery, right? That was the Civil War, is the South was saying, no, we can't own people and do stuff like this. And the North was saying, no, they're humans, they have rights. And it sounds so silly to us now, but back then that was a real thing. And so Neptune moves into Aries, which is the war god. Aries is going to stir shit up, and that's where you become the advocate. And so I like to say the term spiritual warrior activation. That's
I'm activated.
Neptune in Aries.
Because guess what? We're all slaves now. And and now I'm activated. I'm like, that's it. I'm done with this government. Like, I'm done. No, it's time to free ourselves. So
well, and a lot of it is illusions. Like when people talk about Neptune in Aries, a lot of this, what we are reading and seeing, is an illusion. Half of it isn't actually happening. We're not getting truths. We're getting sporadic things to cause us to have reactions. And that's going to be different, because we're going to start trusting our own instinct and not what's being shown to us. And I think that's important, because a lot of people, they're heightened and they want to fight, but they might be fighting against something that they think is right when it could actually be wrong.
I'm 1,000% with you.
Yeah.
I think social media is just a big mind bender, and it's meant to program us in different ways, right? It's meant to elicit
Oh,
emotional
yeah.
response, just like the news
That's
is.
Well, and I almost like, I love the algorithms. I love when it can predict what I want to hear and see. It's really awesome to go on there and be entertained for hours. But it's also, you have to understand it's the illusion, not get sucked in the wormholes.
Yes, you got to remember to keep living. You're still this cool avatar, and you still got a game to play. You can't
And
always
I
be
like the
living.
word avatar. Like that would be a good way of the whole, if you looked at what Neptune going to Aries is going to feel like, it's going to be like Alice awakening from being from the Wonderland, or like the Avatar. Like we now get control of the sticks. We get to decide.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so now I'm extra excited.
Oh,
Tell me
you
about
said.
me. Tell me about me, Sandy. I want to know about Virgos.
Well, I will tell you because I think it's interesting. But I think the important thing too is anytime a planet goes into a sign, there's so much to look forward to. We're talking about spiritual warriors, all that stuff. But what we also have to realize is there is a shadow to every time any of this happens. It's not just all lollipops and rainbows.
I don't like that.
Well,
I want it to
it's
be
just life.
happiness.
And Neptune shadows is illusion and rose-colored glasses and not showing the truth in reality because it doesn't understand reality. Neptune rules our dreams and mysticism and beliefs and more so of the empathic or quantum fields or stuff like that. So when you try to put it into reality, that's where it causes a lot of confusion. Neptune and Aries, there will be a lot of people confused about ego, and there will be a lot of people that are putting on the glasses and maybe not. Like there's going to be shadows, just like everything else. What's going to eventually evolve is the shattering of illusions and mass spiritual awakenings, and a lot of people coming back to that instinctual spiritual warrior.
Katya and I were just going for a walk and talking about how so many people are dealing with anxiety and anger and all of these overwhelming emotions. And they're, I don't know, listening to other people talking, I'm living a totally different reality. I feel like I don't have that right now. And it makes me worry for the masses. Why that is? Is it because they have not awoken, or is it because they're mini awake and they're feeling this shift and they don't understand why it's happening?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's so much more layers to that, right? I think that would be more easily answered with how is this going to affect each person individually?
Mm,
Because if if Aries rules, let's say, your ninth house of perception and philosophy and how you see the world, right? Your realistic or your view, then that's where you're going to have to face some hard illusions, but also where you're going to be activated. But if somebody has it in a place of like their physical body, this might be a very physical process for them. So I think each person is different because we've all chosen different paths. And the interesting part, and I don't want to be controversial, but is everyone's awakening is going to be different.
right.
Because if you think about it, someone else could be saying the same thing and looking at us as not awakened because it's the illusion. But the thing is, we're creating this. This is our creation.
I always forget. I should always have a disclaimer that I always think that the way I think is perfect and that everyone thinks the exact same way as me. Honestly, it's embarrassing and very true at the same time. Oh, so when I ask a question, it's so is everybody just gonna be like this, perfect like me? Boom.
I had some rude awakenings around that when I was in India because they kept saying you can have opinions, but don't get attached to them. And you can have a belief, don't get attached to it.
Right, right. I had a conversation with one of my friends, and we were saying like, how can someone's opinion be wrong? If someone's telling you their opinion, and you're just like, no, your opinion's wrong. It's my opinion.
You
It's
can't change it.
right. I can eventually change it, but in that moment, that's
Yeah.
just my opinion, and it's okay if
Yes.
it's not the same as yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. But I
Oh,
think what you said is valid too, because this is your reality. And you sharing this is going to go to the people who are meant to hear it because they're connected to that.
ask Katya though, my 20-year-old self, I wasn't hearing it. This was perfect. Everything coming out of this hole in my face was gospel. Everything was gospel. And now, oh my God, I realize I know nothing in the grand scheme of things. I'm very humble now.
But that's what makes you smarter, right? I think for you, especially because you're a Virgo, everything is in steps. So that first step was just the realization that, wow, I'm really rigid and I want to like make sure everybody thinks the way I do. And now you're just like, no, I can be more flexible. And then the next step will be detachment. So you're working your way towards it.
You
I'm
are. And all the information changes the opinions, right? You are gathering it and gathering it, which is going to change it.
I'm
Did you ever watch
perfectly
A Christmas Carol?
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you know, at the end, my one of my favorite quotes in the world is Ebenezer Scrooge says, "I know nothing, but now that I know nothing." And I think that's my favorite, and that's literally Neptune in Aries.
Wow.
I know nothing, but now I know.
And I'm perfectly imperfect and I have to be okay with it. Oh man, that's
Oh,
a hard
geez.
reality for a perfectionist, right? To know that you'll never be perfect,
You're perfect.
to strive for greatness, to strive. But I have to enjoy the journey and I have to
Yes.
there is something very healing about being humbled by looking at yourself in the past and realizing that, oh man, my shit did stink.
Oh, very poetic.
There, yeah, I didn't know how to. I was not expecting that.
Yeah. No, that's just one of my MacGruberisms. It's, oh, you know what? My shit does stink. I am not perfect. And but it was a very eye-opening day in my 30s when I went to a class and it was, honest to God, a one sentence and we had to draw. It was like, draw a picture of a house and everybody drew something completely different.
Yes, because
And
everybody sees a house totally different.
it boggled my mind. It threw me for an absolute loop because what I drew was perfect. And then I'm looking, I'm like, what the hell? Some guy drew a tree house? That's not a house. What are you, ridiculous?
Ooh, I like that too. I might even use that when I start to speak of it. It is, because we all have a different perception.
Hmm.
And I
But
think
For
an
sure.
awakened person understands that there's a difference.
hmm,
Absolutely. You know what I would like to know? Because I did an astrology course with you the other week, and something you said about Pluto was like, oh, I totally understand Pluto now. How Pluto shows up and says, what do you like? And you tell it, and Pluto takes it away. Okay, now I know Pluto. So, how would you do that for Neptune?
Ooh, good question. And before I answer, there is a book that probably anybody listening would love to read. It's called Making the Gods Work for You. That's by Caroline Casey, and that's who taught me that Pluto thing that I use all the time. Pluto, like we talked about, was that taking away so you can evolve. Whereas Neptune is more about learning to trust intuition and that therefore seeing through the veil. When we think of Neptune, he fogs reality. So when we try to be practical in that area of our life where Neptune is, it doesn't work. We're confused all the time. If Neptune's in your seventh house of marriage, this is going to be someone who's going to really struggle to understand others. So he puts a veil over it, reality. But if you trust intuitively, if you meditate and go into the subconscious, if you go into the dream veils, if you go beyond, that's where Neptune gives you the superpowers. So I would say Neptune, because he casts a veil over reality, and it's all about, what's a good way of putting it? I would say trust. So he wants you to trust you. And with this whole shift we're going into, because of that veil over reality, it's going to be a lot of people, a lot of the, we'll say the masses, but a lot of people will be questioning what they know to be true. Everything we think is true, we will start to question. And that's because Aries internalizes this veil. So it's, wait a minute.
So that, but
And
this is
Wow.
just one aspect of a big a great thing. So this is a 165-year period that we're coming into where
Well,
Neptune.
no, let me correct you on that.
Okay.
So it's been 165 years since Neptune was in Aries.
Okay.
Neptune will move to Taurus and then Gemini, and then it's going to go through all of the zodiac signs to be back.
Okay. So this specific period. So how long is this period?
I wrote that down. 2039
Oh,
is when it moves into Taurus.
okay. So we got like what, 15 years, 14.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is a big time dream, like how do I explain? I'm trying to find the words to reiterate so that I could just show you I'm understanding what you're saying to me.
Break it into the planet and the sign. So
Okay.
Neptune, yes, you had it right with dreams. When you move it into a warrior sign and a self motivated sign, the energy shifts. Whereas when it was in Pisces, which is actually Neptune's home, for the last little while, that's where we had a lot of spiritual awakenings and collective shifts. And like COVID was a great example like that. It felt like psychological warfare, but look at the illusions that we stopped trusting news. It doesn't matter what side of anything you were on at all. We now know that, wait a minute, we've been lied to. We had to trust more into the spiritual realms. And a lot of people, look at the amount of sound baths we're having. Like anywhere you go in the world, this is something that's a norm. Whereas at the beginning of that 20-year period, it was something that one person did every now and then. And yoga and like everything, there's been this mass pull to find that spiritual connection for people. So now that we shift into Aries, it's going to switch. It's going to be like, hey, I don't like how things are spiritually. So what are my views and how do I start to stand up for what is right?
I totally agree. I would say the last, what, 30, well, the first 30 years of my life were absolutely zero spirituality. If it wasn't for my grandparents, I would have almost no spirituality whatsoever
Wow.
because that's how big the disconnect was. It was just go to school, they took religion out, it was just video games, it was sports, and that was it. There really was no meditation, there was no yoga. Me and Kati were just joking the other day about how we just did like Billy Blank's Taibo and maybe some
You do that
Pilates.
too.
But there was no yoga, right? There was no
No.
exercise. There was no spiritual, mental, and physical mixed together.
It was actually quite taboo to think of anything like even astrology or anything like that. It was very much still there. And most of us were born with Neptune in Capricorn or in one of those signs that it would need practical proof. It wouldn't care about. Yeah, we call it a generational planet because it moves so slowly, your generation will be affected by it.
Well, this is great, though.
So,
This chunk of our time, it seems like the right time for us.
Yeah.
We're very open and accepting, and for our kids too, they're at that sweet spot in the age where they're young enough but not too
Yes.
young, and now they can embrace that. Alora's really connected.
Well, and if you look at the last couple transits, we've had some powerful things. Pluto moving into Aquarius, Neptune going into Aries. Like we're setting up for revolutions and spiritual warfare and all this stuff that is when the evolved parts come out, it's going to really elevate us hugely.
Nice.
a part of me, and I'm wondering if anybody else also feels it when you say that Aries and he brings the god of war energy and there's revolutions. Why do I have this little bit of that's a little scary?
Because
It
it's
feels
scary to go
scary.
against anything. And when Aries works, it asserts. It is scary because when you say, I'm gonna stand for this, our innate nature is I could be killed for this,
Mm.
right? And it's happened a lot while the Civil War was happening. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know time zones, but it wasn't the French Revolution. There was a lot of things shifting. So Aries can be scary because it does cause taking a stand, which doesn't usually go peacefully.
Mm. And I can see that. You can see America ramping up. If it wasn't for Canadians being so polite, we would have overthrown the government long time ago. But they're pushing really
Yeah.
hard, And
We did start a lot of the biggest movements that happened, though. So peaceful as we are, we're strong.
Canadians, I'll say this, we are great complainers, and when we complain loud enough, the government better listen, or else their free
Yeah,
ride is over.
because we have trucks
We
and
got
we will
trucks.
use them.
Yeah, they only have a few tricks left in their bag, and they're not even good tricks anymore. And most of these people can see, wow, this is some pretty stupid playbook stuff that they have. Like, it's pretty
Yes,
bad. It's pretty bad. But
it is.
but it's unnerving because we're so used to being comfortable. And this is one of the things that I've been meditating on myself. It's wow, Generation X, I never thought that I would ever have to see a war. And yet, look at the wars that have happened in my lifetime. Not that I fought in them, but we
I
should
mean,
know better by now. We should know better. And it's awful.
well, and when I think of a peaceful warrior, and I think this goes back to what you said, Cuddy, is the word war is triggering. And so maybe spiritual warfare wasn't the best way to putting it. But when I think of Aries and Neptune together, this is the peaceful warrior. This is the humble warrior. This is, I'm going to take a stand here. But Neptune would do everything with empathy. So it's not like getting the swords out. It's more just bowing and saying, not doing it.
Right. And without knowing very much about it, because I'm still just learning, to me, when I think Neptune, there's a cooler, watery element that comes through for me. And I feel like with Aries being as fire, right? Aries
Yeah.
is fire. That's a clash.
It is. It's not. So, yeah, like in our course, we would not say this is where Neptune is going to thrive in Aries, but it doesn't mean it's not going to be powerful. We need all the elements for a reason. And sometimes water, your Neptune is technically it's ether. So we call it water element, but it's technically ether. And when fire comes in there, we get a proactive static, like the electromagnetic fields something has to move. The energy can't be contained anymore. So it's almost like if we could raise the frequency to an extent where it has no choice but to shift. That's how I would put them together.
I like it. I like the idea of the peaceful warrior that actually is soothing. So that's something good to meditate on for me coming up is the
Yeah.
peaceful warrior.
Yeah. Taking the bow instead of the sword. It's still advocating.
Yes.
I want to dedicate the second half of my life to studying the ether. You called it the ether. I call it the ether. So I think that's one of the most fascinating things. I heard a philosopher talking the other day about what we are in, and it's not air. That he called it the ether. He said, what happens to you when you stop breathing? You hold your breath. He said that you lose your consciousness. And that's what we're in, this consciousness. And that just blew my mind just to think about that. And I'm like, oh wow, the fish doesn't know it's in water.
Yeah.
That's its ether. And I'm like, oh wow, we are living this gigantic overlapping consciousness with each other, this amazing existence. And there's all these people. And even at yoga today, Kati could feel the heaviness of the grief that was around us because we lost someone today. And I'm not that sensitive. So I'm just sitting, driving, listening to her. I'm like, man, you're amazing. But
You
but
are
feel amazing.
sensitive. You
but
are
it's a curse.
sensitive. But that's also a beautiful way of describing it. When we look at Neptune, it's the collective. If you look at the beginning of the zodiac, Aries is self. The end of the zodiac, Pisces, is the collective. It's that empathic state of we are all one. Whereas Aries says, I am the only one. And we need all those energies. It's part of our consciousness. But yeah, like feeling into what's happening, you might not have felt the emotions. Cuddy has a lot more water in her chart than you do, but you would have been affected. You would have probably felt it more on a mental level, yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was all about, I had a vision while I was there, and it helped that Greg was talking. And it was actually Kati. She was doing this puzzle, and she didn't get to finish it. And then the puzzle just got scooped off the table before she got to finish it. I'm like, man, that's so crazy how life is. It's like we're all putting these pieces together, and you never know when your puzzle's going to get put back in the box.
Yeah.
And that's
Very
just
interesting.
that's where my mind went, and it was really sad. I'm like, man, you're cheering for people. Like I cheer for Sandy to keep going on the adventure and get to that level, and I just hate when people get snuffed out before their puzzle's done.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and you can really feel that emotion in your voice. I like that image, vision.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know. I'm trying not to lower myself though. That's one of my things is Alora fell for it. We told her about this death that happened, and right away she went very low. I'm like, okay, I can't ruin my day. I can have compassion, but I don't have to go in and wallow and ruin the day. I have
Yeah.
to protect myself. I guess that's wisdom. And I think Hati does a good job of that too, where she protects herself. But at the same time, when we were out in public, all of a sudden, all the sensitivity, there was a big weight on you, right?
Yeah,
Well,
that
and
was
it's important to mourn,
yeah,
right?
I know myself. I should probably not have gone just because I know that I'm going to feel it. So yeah, I crawled out of that class. It was quite terrible. But
Uh,
that's okay. I wanted to say, though, how useful it's been because you told me to look up my chart and to find where Pisces was in my chart. And it totally helped. It's in, okay. I'm like, great. It's in this Sagittarius ruled house. And I'm like, oh, but I can't travel. And then I was like bummed about it. And then the other day, I thought, what? I started reading this incredible book, and now like my brain is on this wild adventure. I'm like, oh, and there it is,
there's your journey. There's your
right?
vacation. Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's
It's,
awesome to know. So it would be interesting to see what it's going to do to my chart, what it's going to do to his chart.
yeah.
I feel like Neptune is forgotten. I never talk about Neptune. Everybody talks about Saturn and Jupiter and Mars and Venus. Nobody, or Uranus. Nobody talks about Neptune.
Right? Neptune in your chart shows you your spiritual, wherever Neptune is, we don't actually look at the sign because it's, again, a slow planet. You look at that house, the area of life, but it'll show you where is your biggest spiritual connection? Where are your strengths beyond? Where is your mystic? Where is those things? Where are you going to be creative and empathic? And where can you have illusion in your life? Where are you going to be putting on the glasses? So it's an important one to know, but it's not one that a lot of people like to look at because it can hold some hard truths.
All about the hard truths.
Scorpio. Let's go in there. Well, if you want, I can tell you where each person, each rising sign. So we don't actually look at the sun sign when it comes to forecasting where you're going to feel it in your chart. It goes by, we look at the houses, the areas of life. It's important for anybody who's listening that, if they want to know, to look up their rising sign, not their sun sign.
Huh,
I
I
would I
didn't
would
know
en-
that.
I would encourage
Yes.
everybody to reach out to Sandy to find out all of this
Yes, just have her do it.
cool
Yeah, and
information.
every time you get any horoscope, you should be looking at your rising sign. There's your sun sign never will ever be able to forecast what's coming up.
Oh,
I had
see?
no idea.
See the things you learn.
We were just saying about sun sign is like astrology for beginners. That was like my training wheels.
Yeah,
Got my
it
sun
is.
sign. I'm my Virgo. Here we go. All right. I don't need to know anything else yet. I'm just got my big wheel. And
I know. And then you take like one of the wheels off and
it's, oh, okay. Now I got to start learning about this other. But it's cool. Like anything, the more you look into stuff, the more fascinating, the more interesting it gets, the more it explains. So that's why I love doing this with you because I get to learn way more. So thank you.
well, and I get to project it. So it's a win.
Nice. Speak it into existence, Sandy. What do you see for me?
Well, I'll go through each rising sign, and what I'll do is just because we don't have 8 million hours, I'll
Right.
just give a brief so another thing Neptune rules is confinement. A lot of our institutions are ruled by Neptune energies. So I'm going to look at where they can let go of that confinement and then where their new vision, their new dream will be. So I feel like that's a quick way to get everyone to think about it. And then, yes, if they want to know more, I am very willing, it's my career, I will help them.
Awesome.
Perfect.
All right. So the Aries rising sign actually will feel this very much because they have it in their 12th house. So anyone who has Aries rising, it's going to be in their subconscious. So it's going to be letting go of the confinement of their own mental health, wherever they've been stuck in there. And their vision is going to be for how do I take the reins and recreate self? So that would be how Aries will feel this. And again, I'm not going to go through the shifts, but it always comes in with a shadow and then the evolve. And then Taurus risings in the, do I have that right? 11th house. So they're going to be able to go of that unbalanced kind of way of living, over committing or under committing or whatever it is. And their vision's going to be literally for more well-being and healthier relationships, I'm going to say. 11th house is really about our social network. And if it's healthy, then we grow and our hopes and wishes are recognized. If it's unhealthy, we're imbalanced because we're a direct representation of what our network is.
Oh, that's interesting. And by the way, dear, that's Alora. She's a Taurus rising.
What am I? I don't care about Alora.
We'll get there.
We'd have to look your chart up.
Oh, I know Kathy's got it on file here for me.
Yeah, she knows now.
Okay.
So Gemini rising, this is going to be in the house of career and the reputation. So they're going to be literally letting go of outdated timelines with taking action, like goals that they've had set that have been causing a lot of stress, and what the parts of their reputation that hold them back. And where they're going to look is a new vision for self-evolution. So what is my legacy? Cancer is in the 9th house. So Cancer risings are going to be letting go of confining perspectives on life, and they're going to create a new vision. I like to call this a new religion, the religion of them.
That sounds cool.
I know.
That's me.
That's
you.
That's me.
Wow.
Yay! Leo rising, this is in the 8th house. And so it's going to be letting go of not being in their power or hidden behaviors. Like this is a karmic house. So oftentimes it's hidden, it's their shadows that are going to be put out there. So what they're going to get from this is freedom, is getting rid of cycles that keep them trapped.
Okay.
Virgo rising is in the 7th house, the marriage house. So they're going to be letting go of outdated relationship behaviors, also once in life that come from codependency. And their new vision is going to be for soul love and true power from authentic teamwork.
Lucky.
No.
That's an awesome one.
That's a good one.
Good for all the Virgos out there. Virgo risings.
Virgo risings.
Virgo rising, sorry. Me and Kathy are talking in the background. I think I'm Capricorn rising.
You are.
Yeah.
Can't wait to get to that one.
Well, then I won't skip ahead.
It's fine.
Libra is in the 6th house. So this is going to be letting go of the outdated version of, I like to call it the hustle, right? This is the house of our health, but also how we live our day-to-day life. And so where we feel like we are constantly spinning our wheels, that's going to be let go. So the new vision is going to be on personal fulfillment and like actually having time to be healthy, to feel into your timing of your day-to-day life. Scorpio rising, this is going to take place in the 5th house. So they're going to be letting go of overindulgence and also illusions with the heart's desire. A lot of times there's a lot of illusions cast over what we think we need to be happy and what we actually need. And then the new vision's going to be for living a heart-centered life is what I love to say here, but actually just finding that enthusiasm, that passion, that childlike spark. Sagittarius rising, this is in the 4th house area of life, which is a lot of times home, family, inner self. So they're going to be letting go of any unstable emotional patterns or ancestral ancestral patterns, like those century blueprints that might still be running. And then what they're going to find is this new vision for what family actually means and what home actually means to them. So if that means being comfortable in their own body, or actually understanding what, how do I need to feel to belong? Capricorn rising, so this is you.
The most important one.
This is in the third house, so letting go of confinements within the mind.
Oh, very appropriate.
This is going to give you your new vision is going to be about taking in information and sifting it, but not sifting it because there's untruths or not truths. More so, just how do I re-put this into a language that I can translate, if that makes sense. So confinements with the mind, and then working through the translations.
Very appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Aquarius is going to have this in the second house of their acquisition, self-worth, and so on. So they're going to learn to let go of feelings of instability, insecurity, and outdated values that they might be clinging to. And it's going to bring them a new vision of a new relationship with monetary things and with value. And I like to say the energy of exchange. I don't like to use the word money. I don't know what I have against using it, but the second house rules stuff like that. But if you can understand it as an energetic exchange as opposed to the greed and attachment we've put into it, that's how I would describe that.
Nice.
So letting go of instability.
Me and Katya have been talking about green energy lately. Instead of money, we're calling it green energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there's a book by Robin Wall Kimmerer, Braiding Sweetgrass, that the indigenous original way of how they would have their markets and stuff. And I always loved that. It just always resonated. But we'll finish. So Pisces rising. If you have a Pisces rising, this will take place for you in your actual first house, which is the physical body and identity. This will be about letting go of self-doubt. And it's a new vision for this kind of inner and outer security. So with the role that you play, security that way, and also with the actual physical body, whether that's learning to love where you are now or to build it into what you want.
Wow. So all of this stuff, like for each person's rising sign, the information you just dropped is with us for the next 15 years.
Yes. And so it'll start as a process of illusions that need to come up. And then it's going to bring that almost like a spiritual awakening through that area of life is where it's going to come through. And just to be clear, everybody's chart is different. So if somebody's very close to the end of a sign, this might not be accurate for them. This is generalized. So for the majority of the population, this is where they'll be experiencing it.
You know what would be a great idea is to write down and time capsule it so that in 15 years you open it up and be like, oh, did I do that? When was that moment?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I do the opposite. I plan it. I'm like, Gemini rising. Okay, this is my career. All right, let's. Where am I being elusive? But I like the time capsule idea. It's probably more fun to reflect than.
Did we actually do this?
Right. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I liked mine a lot. I thought, oh, wow, how appropriate and I feel like I've already been on that, just trying to not always be in my mind, actually going into my gut, going into my heart, like thinking in different ways, not just mentalo going. I feel like your mind is not your best friend either.
Well, and I think like for you, Cap rising in the third house, this is an interesting one because I literally just taught an entire yoga class on this the other day.
Oh, wow.
Is our mind chatter. We don't understand that this is a person with us for 24 hours and it's not us, right? But we can control it by becoming the gatekeeper of what comes in or out. And so I love that you were saying that because that's been on my mind a lot.
Yeah, and I would say my worst nemesis is my mind chatter. It's my worst enemy, worse than any other person could ever say or do to me, my own mind.
I always say that about Virgo. You guys are your own worst critics and you worry yourselves more than anybody else in the world.
And that's why, though, right? That's why you tend to fall asleep in sound baths. And whenever we do any kind of meditation, your mind has to stop working so that your subconscious can take over.
Ah, yeah.
Get out the way. I'm getting better at not thinking, though. Just shut it off most of the time. Okay, that's enough. No more thinking. Just feel. Oh man, Sandy, thank you so much for that. That is fascinating. I can't wait to actually listen to it again. And Kathy mentioned Leo, and I'm just waiting. I'm terrible. I'm just waiting for mine, and I'm not even half paying attention. I'm like, I don't care. Nobody really matters. I just need me. But it is fascinating because I did listen to a few of them, and I'm like, wow, like the family and the closeness one. I can't remember which one that was for Virgo, or I thought, oh wow, that's a nice thing for somebody to know if that's their sign. And this is your time to work on your family, or the last one was like for working on yourself.
Well, and knowing where when we talked about that humble warrior and we see how Neptune and Aries comes in and we get this ability to like start to see our own beliefs and our own illusions, and then we know what area is this going to come through. It's like getting a map. It's going to happen regardless. But if you have instructions, you can use it as a tool.
Yeah, I keep saying that it's like if you know which way the river is going, you get in your canoe and you go with the flow. Instead of, I would say half my life I've been paddling up the damn thing. And if I would have known you 20 years ago, I could be like,
I would have been going upstream right along with you 20 years ago.
I could have been in Argentina by now. It would have been so with the flow. But the best time to plant a tree is today. And I'm really happy that we know you and that you're doing the show with us here. And where can everybody find you? Because they need to find you. Just go find Sandy.
Well, through you guys. My website is www.solarpowerhealth.com. And that's a good way if you want to do bookings. And then otherwise, I'm very active on Instagram at Solar Power Health.
Awesome.
And I do lots of astrology on TikTok, but I'm not active on it. So if you need to get a hold of me.
Website.
Website's
the way to go. I'm going to put that in the links, and man, just go get it done. Find your roadmap. I can't wait for the next one because we got, how many do we have planned?
We have quite a bit. All the major transits we have.
So we're excited to bring Sandy back for more episodes like this. And you know what? This episode's good for the next 14 years. So come back, listen to it, enjoy. Because we're ready to rock for the next 14 years of the Pear Genius Podcast.
Oh, that's well said.
It's for Olympics.
Until 2039.
Yeah, exactly. It's for Olympics. We're good. We're good.
Thank you so much, you guys. It was so good seeing you. I very much enjoy these.
For sure. Kati, any last words before we sign off?
Nope.
Nothing. Keeping it simple and short. For everybody, Sandy, Kati, myself, we just want to remind you guys to keep living your genius. Check out some of the other episodes. We have a previous episode with Sandy. I thought that was fantastic. And I can't wait for the next one. So we're going to promote the heck out of it. This one's dropping really soon. So I'm going to get into the producing lab and make it all spicy for Sandy. It's going to be awesome. So thank you, Sandy, for joining us. And we can't wait to have you back on the next episode. See you later, everybody.